Ensuring an adequate supply of fresh water has always been a challenge for the Maltese Islands, in particular during the long dry summers which are a characteristic of our Mediterranean climate. Water management intervention to augment water supply can in fact be traced back to the Neolithic period, with the excavation of the first rainwater harvesting systems to store the winter rains. Along the years, an increasing population and enhanced economic activity has generated an ever-increasing demand for water, which cannot be met by natural water resources. Therefore, the use of alternative water production technologies was introduced to meet these growing demands. The Energy and Water Agency was established in 2014 with the aim of supporting the Maltese government in the formulation of comprehensive and sustainable policies for the development of the national water and energy services sectors. Therefore, we seek to provide the policymakers with the knowledge base necessary to take informed policy decisions, based on an accurate analysis of the current status and expected development in both sectors. We are able to provide this support through our multidisciplinary staff: geologists, chemists, engineers, environmental scientists, lawyers, economists. Together, they analyze climatic, environmental, production and consumption data and transform it into information which can guide the development of effective national policies. Policy development therefore starts on the field. Collecting data on natural freshwater resources, constant communication and data exchanges with service providers is essential to assess the water demand trends of consumers. This enables us to gain a comprehensive understanding of how water flows in our islands. We are constantly developing our monitoring network to provide increased coverage of different parts of the natural water cycle. Catchment-based monitoring allows us to correlate the relationship between rainfall and runoff, thereby increasing our understanding of flood risks. Unsaturated zone monitoring enables us to monitor the quality and volume of water, infiltrating down through the rocks to sustain our aquifer systems. Groundwater monitoring enables us to assess the qualitative and quantitative condition of our fresh groundwater resources, whilst monitoring of coastal groundwater discharge provides an assessment of natural losses of fresh water. These networks utilize advanced technologies such as downbore geophysical probes, multi-level sampling probes, as well as water quality and water level logging probes, which enable important data to be remotely collected across all the Maltese Islands. We also collect data on water abstraction and water production from the service providers, such as the Water Services Corporation and other private operators in the industrial, commercial, and agricultural sectors. The production of alternative water sources, like through seawater desalination and the reclamation of wastewaters, is an important feature of Malta's national water cycle, given the limitations in the availability of natural freshwater resources. The data which is collected from our monitoring networks or provided from our stakeholders is transferred and stored in our centralized databases. From here, our data analysts work to translate this data into information on the status of natural freshwater resources, the risks of droughts or floods, as well as on trends in the water demand of the different water-using sectors. This is done by using various analytical techniques and tools, such as statistical software, geographic information systems, and numerical modeling platforms. This process generates a solid information base, upon which clear and effective policies can be developed. The information generated by our experts is then used to assess how Malta is faring in achieving national and international targets, and therefore gauge the effectiveness of the existing national water policy frameworks. This enables us to identify policy gaps and provide advice to policymakers on how these gaps can be addressed. This information is also used in the context of the European Union to highlight Malta's efforts and constraints in addressing key targets established under EU legislation. We can all agree that water is a key element in our lives, sustaining our households, our economic activities, and our environment. The contribution of the Energy and Water Agency in supporting the development of improved water management practices goes beyond the confines of the water sector, achieving a cross-sectoral impact, as well as aligning Malta's policies to the objectives of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This is the important contribution which each and every one of our employees, in their diverse roles, provides to our country, planning a sustainable future.
Oui, bonjour à tous, bienvenue dans notre...
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first gathering of the year. I'd like, first of all, to express my warmest wishes for a Happy New Year to everyone. So I'll remind you just that we are starting. For those who wish to listen to, there's interpretation into English. It's on the globe at the bottom, and choose English. So if I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
To listen in English, so you have the globe with interpretation, so you can choose English, and so like this I leave you 2 minutes for that. Encore une fois, mes meilleurs vœux de...
Once again, my best wishes and live here. I'm glad to see so many of you today, as there are more than 220 people registered representing 24 countries, which proves that the IME is really the first network at the Mediterranean level for water professionals. I'd like to thank you all, the Friends of Water, who are here today with us. I'd like to remind you that today's session is recorded, which is the reason why we put the movie on a couple times. We'd like to thank our Maltese friends. This was the video that was presented at the Water Forum in Malta. So, and afterwards, you'll have an opportunity after the presentations to ask your questions by using the chat. Throughout the presentations today, we have a double theme on the road to Dakar, which were both presented at the Water Forum in Malta. So we have we'll have first a presentation by Gérard Payen, who represents today the French Water Partnership, who is the sponsor of this webinar. And we would like to really thank them for this, and thank you to Gérard. Thanks, Gérard, for his presence. Afterwards, we will have the President Gérard is here to present how to use concretely the SDGs in field actions related to water and sanitation. I will come back to this later. Afterwards, we will have the second theme, which is the theme of the return or the feedback from the Malta Water Forum, presented by Manuel Sapian, who's the CEO of the Maltese Energy and Water Agency. And I'd like to thank Manuel again for have organized this Water Forum in Malta so professionally, in collaboration with our colleagues from the Union for the Mediterranean, represented today by Zabadi, who's the secretary for the Union for the Mediterranean. And then we will have 5 pilots and 5 minutes each. For the solutions that were brought to the Mediterranean that we suggested to propose to study between now and March to bring to Dakar with us. And then we will have a synthesis. Because we're very lucky, because we chose here today to use a former minister. It's a great luck that we had the possibility. And I'd like to thank again Sharafat Afilal, who accepted to be our presenting the synthesis of these various sessions, because it was a large body of work to conclude this work. So I'll go back to the first session. So Gérard Payen as a man of water with over 35 years and maybe 40 in water-related issues, defending the right to water for always first in the private sector for a very long time. I'm not going to say very long how long, but he was working with Suez and he was at the highest level of management within Suez, and also as the president of Aquafed, which was the International Federation of Water Providers, where he was the advisor to the two Secretary Generals of the UN, both Kofi Annan and Ban Ki-moon. And he still today has very good relationships with these two persons and their new roles, and he has kept privileged relationships with the UN. He has worked a lot. He's contributed to the mobilization of the international community for better management of water-related issues. Which means more ambitious public policies. Thank you, Gérard, for being with us today. You have already presented the conclusion of the Water Forum, first presentation on the solution presented by the PFE or the FWP, how to use concretely the ODDs to design and follow water projects. Once again, thank you. The floor is yours, Gérard. Thank you very much, Alain. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the Mediterranean, the IME, for giving me the floor to speak to you all. I would like to speak to you about the ODDs that gather us all here, because there are numerous, there are Mediterranean. And I'd like to have a short, back before 2015, there were many international meetings of various qualities. Some were very interesting, very important, but there were no shared objectives. So there was only one SDG for water, which is access to water. Since 2015, the situation has totally changed. There are 20 SDGs for water who are specific, who are ambitious, and who gather us all because all the countries have adopted them unanimously. So if we all have a shared, heritage, and at the same time, it gives us objectives or, the goals that we need to adopt. These were adopted within what we call the Agenda 2030 agenda. So for SDGs, what we call in French, the SDGs in English and ODDs in French. And I will talk to you about the ODDs, SDGs, and our place as water actors in these SDGs. And so for this, I have a few pictures I would like to share with you. Can you see my screen now? Yes, we can see it very clearly, Gérard. Thank you. So the first thing is I'm going to remind you what are the SDGs and the 2030 agenda. So this is very interesting because normally my screen should move, but it's not moving. That's it. But it worked. What's the 2030 agenda that was adopted by all states in 2015? It's a set of 169 targets that we call targets. These 169 targets or goals also include sub goals, and all the states have decided to make every effort to try to reach them by 2030. So these 169 targets is a lot, but also not many. It's a lot to communicate, to dialogue, to hold meetings, because it's difficult to cover all these when then, for humans that we are, we're limited, but it's in the end not a lot given the challenges or the issues. In fact, the ambition of this program, the 2030 agenda, is to face all the main challenges of humanity, both for food, health, employment, environmental protection, and justice, for the reduction of inequalities, many things. In fact, all the main challenges of humanity are usually all included in the 2030 agenda. And given all these issues, 169 targets is not a lot, but Yet to hold a dialogue, this is very complicated, and this is why we rank them in 17 thematic goals, which we call the main SDGs, numbered from 1 to 17. And you see here the symbols below my slide, at the bottom of my slide. But what we really need to understand is that these are only families, and that the political objectives, the policy objectives are the 169 targets. This program was seen as an action program, and when we want to succeed, you have to measure success or your progress. This is why at the international level, more than 200 indicators, monitoring indicators were determined, and they are today being monitored by the statisticians of all countries and aggregated by the United Nations. So the program is the following: 169 targets to be reached with monitoring, indicators within the 17 families or goals. It's the SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation. But water is everywhere. So you see here, a representation of the 17 SDGs in different colors. And you see that the bottom right, SDG 6, which is water, with an arrow that represents the 8 goals of the SDG 6, so it's the 8 targets. And you see other blue arrows. There are targets in multiple SDGs. Why? Because out of these 169 targets, there are 20 targets that are directly linked to water. So there are 20 targets that are linked to water that we must all meet. You know that water is everywhere in this planet. It has a very important place that gives it a political visibility. It didn't have to before, but that's so we have these targets. These 20, they cover many actions for people. So where are we doing today? Here we have a problem. There's a problem because amongst the water and sanitation professionals, only very few know the whole program of the 2030 agenda. Many only know one target and work on reaching this one target, which is good. It's very good, in fact. So for example, those of us who work on improving access to clean water, that's very good. So they contribute to reach one SDG target. But does it mean they're also helping to reach the others? The question is asked here because all these SDGs are disconnected. For example, that if you're going to improve, clean water, you can also improve good health. All SDGs are connected. When you're a water actor, and we understand that this 2030 agenda is very important. It's very ambitious, for humanity. Now, understand is my policy, my strategy contribute to SDGs? The answer is very difficult to get because to answer in theory, we would need to know the whole program, which most of us do not have the time to do. And in practical level, SDGs are very little used at the operational level in the water sector, which is really a pity given the importance of this program. And it's very important for the objectives to be reached. We must reach the objectives for water. And as all SDGs are connected, so to reaching the water SDGs means reaching other SDGs. So the question that we may ask, does my project contribute to the SDGs? That does not really have an answer. But I have a tool that can propose. We spoke about it earlier in Malta, we spoke about it. It's a tool that today is available to all. This tool is called the Water for All SDGs. So it's in English. It means water contributes to all SDGs. So what is it? It's a methodology that removes the complexity of SDGs as perceived by most actors. So pre-preparing or pre-crushing these elements so that the actors can use the SDGs in a practical, operational manner. This method works. It's been used since March of last year. It's nearly a year now through the international jury that for the initiative Dakar 2022, this is a jury that receives multitude of projects and assesses them according to different criteria, including their impact on SDGs. So the methodologies work, and the French partner represented today, the FWP, has developed an application, an app, a digital tool that is very easy to use, that has the same name, that allows anyone anyone from the sector, without knowing the SDGs, but to easily detect the impact of a project or a strategy or a policy on the SDGs, and to make a general assessment, basic assessment. So this tool is very easy to use and answers the previous answer, the question that allows every actor in the water sector, without having to review all the SDGs or know them all, just know if his or her project participates or contributes to SDGs. So I put here on the screen a link that you will have with the pictures or the slides to be able to have more information on this. This tool, and very briefly, is a very simple tool, a very easy to use tool that makes SDGs concrete and usable for operational purposes. It's a tool that is an impact assessment tool that provides can be shared with others. So there's a document that can be shared with others. So it can be subject of discussion or justification. It's a tool that, has a merit of that it prevents of SDG washing, because many people say that they contribute, and so that's what we call the SDG washing is developing or growing around the world. The more you talk about SDGs, the more people do SDG washing, and this tool, by being objective, can prevent this while respecting the systemic nature of the 2030 agenda, because the 2030 agenda is a system, and to take it in small sections would mean we lose it. The 2030 agenda is a coherent set. We cannot divide it into parts, otherwise it's not successful. So practically, as it's a practical tool, as we said, concrete, I'm going to first of all show you the opening over the home page of this. But I'm not going to show you the app, but I'm going to show you what the product is and how does it work. I'm going to tell you quickly how it works. As I said, the SDGs are complex, and the assessor does not need to know them all. Why? Because the app was able to recognize many operations where the action has an impact on the SDGs, and the assessor does not have to read to the text and the rationale of the SDGs. What all they have to do is to confront or compare his project to these hundreds of situations that were identified. He's only asked if the project is in these pre-existing situations or is close. So there's a level of proximity to some, you might say. If we have to look at hundreds of situations, we're going back into another form of complexity, but the tool does not do that. It helps them sort. It actually ranks it. And the first thing we do is ask them to identify through major thematics, family thematics, to identify what are the thematics that influence this project. So if you have a water supply, a clean water supply project, you can see that immediately that it's not water and energy or a disaster, or disasters or agriculture. You're going to go to water in cities or drinking water as a theme here. So This gives you access to, predefined situations, not hundreds, but, a few dozen. And this allows us where all the words count in these situations. You have to read them clearly. And to be able to define if your project is, in proximity of these projects. If you do this, the work is all done. You just have to press the result button and you get a list of impacts on the various SDGs. So I'm not going to go through the whole list because it's pages long. What I'm showing you is the graphic result that appears here on the screen. So this graphic result shows you in one page. And the graphic, the contribution to SDGs. And so you have here, for example, this is an example of reuse of wastewater. It's a case in which a city does two things. And one way it reduces leakage and also it adds another level to treatment water. It's a treatment station to allow its users to be wastewater to be reused and in manufacturing facility. So this is this very specific example here. It's impacts SDG 6, but also other SDGs. So we need to see that each line corresponds to, an SDG. I have them, here all listed from 1 to 17 with a zoom on SDG 6, because of course it's the one that's most impacted by water projects. There are multiple lines for SDG 6. So for each line where there's a blue line, that means it's a positive impact. If it's a red line, it's a negative impact. So this project has impacts on many SDG, goals of SDG 6, but also on others, which is not obvious at all at first. So, have impact on 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so SDGs. So if we look at another example, creation example, which is the creation of a new water network in an urban slum, you're going to have a similar result, but very different. You can see here, SDG 6 will be impacted, but 6 other SDGs will also have an impact. That was, if we look at it closer at this in more detail, if I zoom in, you can see that the positive impacts are, of course, on 6.1, which is access to safe drinking water, 6.1. But there's also, an impact on SDG 1 for poverty alleviation, because the slum is filled mostly with poor people. There's also an impact on SDG 3, which is health, because of bringing safe water, clean water, is going to allow the inhabitants of the slum to no longer buy water from suspicious characters of selling water of known origin. There's also an impact on SDG 5, because before, as the project, for part of the population, that they had to go fetch the water from wells, remote distance. But way at the bottom, you can see the SDG 10 has also got an impact, but it's a reduction of inequality, not gender inequality, but inequality general. But the inhabitants of the slum now have equal, opportunities as their neighbors from other areas. You see that it has also an impact on SDG 11, which is a sustainable and resilient cities. And if you look all the way bottom, you see it's got an impact, positive impact on SDG 16, because in this slum, people who did not have any backup for their domicile justification. Now they can do it with their water bill. So you can see that this tool gives quite specific results. You can see also that there are 3 red lines here. And we see, which means a negative impact. And this is very interesting for the project, leader. And so this allows us to to add additional measures to mitigate these negative impacts. I mentioned them quickly, so just so you can understand what they're. So on SDG 1, we have a little red line, which comes from the fact that the rates for drinking water may be too high or too expensive, but they are going to add additional costs for the population. The impact isn't very high because we don't know yet on the target for access to safe drinking water. It's on a positive impact, but also there's a negative one because the supply, this neighborhood will be done without increasing water production. So the same quantity of water being in the network means other areas are going to have less water available. So this means there are going to be water shortages or cuts in other neighborhoods. So the quality is going to be lesser for other neighborhoods. This is an important point to understand when we build a project or put together a project. I'm not going to say more on this slide, but I wanted you to see that this tool allows you to become aware of the water project impacts many SDGs, and you have seen with just 2 projects, we impact on pretty much all SDGs. And you can also see that when you want the, go to the SDGs, it's very practical because the matters we've discussed here are very practical and content. So to assess the contributions to SDGs, does it bring anything to the project leaders or owners? So yes, the experience of the Dakar initiative shows that very often the assessors are surprised by the number of SDGs impacted. It's the double of what they thought. Also, this allows us to show the negative impacts, as I said earlier. Well, this is the path towards an improvement in our projects. And also, it happens frequently that project holders that thought that their projects are contributing to SDGs, that in practice, that's not the case. It does not mean that their projects are not good projects, but because SDGs are targets to be reached. In the water sector, we can do projects to avoid degradation or to keep a status quo, but maintaining status quo is not a program, so it does not have an impact on SDGs. So in fact, as I was saying, it allows us also to have an objective. This impact studies, and you could share them with others. So in a way that I think with what you are trusting, the collective interest of this work is mostly so to look for the SDGs. Are made up until now. People used to see them in a complex or vague way, but when we use the tool, you realize that it's very specific and very operational, and also shows that it's the silos way, because no longer the way to do things, because all ideas are interdependent. So this app is today functional in French. It will be operational in English in 1 month, and it will be made publicly available for free through at the Dakar forum. So after the forum in Dakar, everybody will be able to use this. Up until the Dakar forum, it's accessible to the institutions who would wish to test it for their projects. But with an NDA or a confidentiality agreement, and knowing that there will be more improvements. So some of you, it's possible. So send us an email here to contact@waterforallsdgs.org, and we will, get sorted to allow you access. Now that I've shown you that there is a tool that allows us to use the SDGs in a different way, I go back to the position of water in the 2030 agenda. This tool, I said since the beginning that there are 20 targets in the 2030 agenda that are directly linked to, connected to water. So it means that water is targeted by the 2030 agenda. And so, of course, this creates or requires a certain number of action to reach these 20 targets. but the use of tools that I presented show in a very practical way that when you act in the water sector, safe water, sanitation, etc. When we work on the water sector, we can have positive impacts or negative impact on other SDG targets. And it's important to know this, so we have negative impacts on other SDGs. We maybe have people who will oppose the project once they see this. And so, on the contrary, in other sectors, for example, actions in the agricultural sector or energy sector, environment protection actions can have a positive or negative impact on the water sector and on the targets linked to water. So we need to have a global view and to respect this, the coherence of all this. So beyond this, water has a symbolic value in SDGs. So I said there are 20 targets out of 169. And so in addition to that, the way we use water and we know what has a symbolic value for all SDGs, we have 4 titles. So I would like to conclude by presenting these 4 subjects. First of all, the 2030 agenda is systemic. It's not maybe a very known word. So what does that mean? So it's a whole system that all the SDGs all together have a coherence together. If you remove 1 or 2, there's something missing. There's no point today. For example, to reduce CO2, emissions to reach a temperature increase limited to 1.5. If at the same time we pollute our waterways and oceans to such a degree that they're unusable. So, it's systemic means that we have to succeed in all actions at the same time. So we have said, there were, we said there are lots of links between water and other sectors. One of the principles of the 2030 agenda is we have to act outside of the silos, sectoral silos. This may seem obvious, but yet our habit is to work in silos. The ministries work independently, ones from the others. It's difficult to get them to work together. And so, so water has a symbolic value because in the water sector, we in fact work with all sectors when we manage water resources, when we manage underground, aquifers, when we manage these resources in water, we must work with the agricultural sector, the industrial sector, with the cities, with the environment protection sector. So we are used to work outside of the silos. But it also means something else. It means that the SDG, the water or global SDGs for water are not going to succeed if we only work amongst ourselves, so the people of water. So this. So third characteristic for which water is a symbolic marker is that the SDGs are sustainable development goals. It's a long-term program. The theoretical target is 2030. We know that we're quite aware that for most SDGs, we won't be reached by 2030, but if we get there 2040, it's a good thing, but it takes a long time. And we know that in the water sector, that we know that investments take decades. We know that the top of this is when you want to restore a water table, it takes many decades. And we know that quite well. And at the end, the fourth criteria is for which is the long-term sustainability for the 2030. So it's for sustainable development. And so the sustainability is obviously for long term. It's not for just 2030. It's for the following decades. It's the following generations. But sustainability does not mean fixism, being fixed. We know that when we manage, underwater aquifers. It's not the level of the aquifer that's important. It changes all the time, but what's important is that the aquifers will replenish and do not disappear. This is what we mean by sustainability. It's not the fixity of it, a fixism. So I wanted to show you these symbolic values because it adds to this value. So to conclude, if you will only remember two things, is that there are SDGs for water, and they are both specific and ambitious, and you can use them in an operational way. We can use them for designing policies, projects. We can also use them for monitoring of these policies and these projects. And practically, there is a tool that makes this very practical, which is the Water for All SDGs that will be available to all for all in March, end of Dakar Forum. Thank you for your attention. And I've tried to save a few minutes.
Non, bravo. Bravo pour cette présentation extrêmement claire.
Very well, Gérard, for this extremely beautiful presentation, and I think that the interpreters will thank you very much because it was a very well paced and everyone was able to follow. Thank you, Gérard, for your best timing possible. And without further ado, I think that we have some questions. I'll raise 2 questions because the others were addressed in the in your presentation. The accessibility would be of the app would be in March, and if you want to have more information and use the app, do not hesitate to contact or to send an email to contact@waterforallsdgs.org. And I have another question from Alpha Majoub. How can we know whether there is an impact or not of that software? I know the software. I've been using it as a member of the jury of in Dakar Initiative 2022. So how is the positive and negative impact of the app are evaluated? Nicolas Roche is also asking about this approach and whether you are using it in other sectors such as health education or food sector. So these are 2 of the questions that were asked. If you could address them very quickly. Of course, yes, I would gladly address them very quickly now. For the other sectors, I don't think that there is a similar app that is used. However, I know that there are some other researchers are studying the methodology of what the app and try to replicate it or transmit it to other sectors. That is a future plan. And the first question you raised, I tried to show you the fact that the app has 2 functionalities. The first of all is to detect the impact, as you already have seen through the presentation, and then roughly analyze the impact to give them a characteristic and know how important these are. In addition to that, the user should detect the impact. Of course, after detecting that impact, we need to go further in order to have a more detailed impression of the impact. That is being done as follows. Each impact has a score between 0 and 100. If the score is above 50, it is a very important impact. However, even if the score is below 50, still the score is important. However, these are some important impacts that can change from an SDG to another, and the impacts can change based on the parameters that could be variable. So the score is from 0 to 100, and of course, it gives an idea about the importance of the impact. There are more questions on the chat box, and we'll continue and address your questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for your presentation. And this next theme of the day is the theme about the feedback from our Malta Forum, the fourth Mediterranean Water Forum of Malta, and an opening to Dakar's Water Forum. What we've seen today would be presented officially in the Dakar forum, and we're working with our partner, with the government of Malta, and the forum of Dakar, which will, of course, make possible in Dakar addressing or having a session about to address the conclusions and feedback of the Forum of Dakar. I'll give first of all the floor to Mr. Manuel Sapiano, who was our host during 2 days, and then I'll give the floor to Mr. Amutaz Adi, Managing Director at the Secretary of the Union for the Mediterranean. These two people were our partners in the organization of the Fourth Mediterranean Water Forum. They'll be introducing the work, then we'll successively talk about the 5 pillars. Manuel, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alain. And definitely looking back towards last month with the Mediterranean Water Forum, first of all, let's say, one could recall the challenging conditions within which the forum was organized and the fact that we could not host, unfortunately, everyone who wished to be in Malta in person, obviously for health conditions which were beyond our control. And however, even though, let's say, we had a limited attendance in Malta, and I would like to really thank all those who were able and made the effort to come to Malta and contribute in person, but I would also like to thank all those who contributed online. This was the first forum to be organized in a hybrid manner, and the registrations, the attendances also online were very, very encouraging, as well as was the, let's say, feedback and support and inputs given by those attending online. So definitely, I would like to thank all for the support and the input given, because this helps to generate a truly Mediterranean message, a conclusion which reflects the aspirations and the experiences of the whole Mediterranean region. The presentations and the discussions were interesting, but more than the presentations, the outcomes and the conclusions which we will hear about from other speakers who represent the pilots who made the efforts for coordinating the technical sessions of the forum are really encouraging and point out to the possibility of taking over a strong message from the Mediterranean to Dakar, which is important because the Mediterranean, with its long history of civilization, which is strong history of water challenging conditions, is, I would say, a pilot, a real brewing pot where technologies, practices can be tested, particularly in view of coming climate change impacts. And therefore, it's really a fact that the outcomes from our discussions can be important for other regions, for other realities who are facing or will be facing our challenges in the future. I will not take much more time, but I would like to first of all thank IME and UFM, and also let's say confirm the support of Malta and of our government to continue together now in the run-up to the World Water Forum. So all the support needed will basically, even from a political perspective, will be provided to ensure that we manage to put on the spotlight on the message which will come out from the Mediterranean, from the technical discussions to which most of you have contributed. Thanks to all, and I think I can pass the floor to our friend Almotats to present the point of view and the vision from the side of the UPM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel, for this commitment toward the work Dakar from your point of view and from the Maltese government. We are very happy to also join forces with you as well as all our partners. But to start with, I would like to thank very much IME for their excellent work to make this meeting happening, bringing around the table all our great friends from all around the Mediterranean, from the south, the north, and also to take this opportunity in order to extend our commitment as a Union for the Mediterranean to the process of the World Water Forum, as well as to the process that we are leading in order to enhance the Mediterranean voice on water issues and to take our response collectively with a unified message in order not only to give, here I'm confirming what Manuel said, that the Mediterranean is a pilot that can be also replicated other way. But my concern now when it comes to the issue related to the water in the Mediterranean is absolutely related to the climate change effect, the pandemic, as well as the political situation in the Mediterranean. When it comes to the Mediterranean region and the climate change, it's easy for us to see its effect in Arctic, it's ice. In the Mediterranean, the effect of the climate change is its water. And we can see that from our partners' reports and scientific evidence and research that the distribution of water is getting really an alarming situation. Water is becoming scarce here in the Mediterranean. And the most important part, as said by Gérard, is the water is in the center of development of all other sectors. It is the center of the development of the socio-economic reality. And when it connects the climate change concern as well as the pandemic concern, for us, it is not only the health, it is not only the stress on the hospitals, it is like that, but also its effect on the GDP, which means for us as a Union for the Mediterranean who are working on enhancing the socio-economic reality, and now GDP in our member state is going to be less. So this is another alarming element for us that the water sector might be affected. So the best approach for us is to look from now for Dakar and beyond Dakar, how we can enhance the cooperation to keep the water sector first at the political agenda of our country. Second, how we will avoid the water sector to be affected from any possible cut from the budget support for the water sector by not only just saying it, but also to look at how we can make the water sector sustainable within, as well as the other part in the Mediterranean. When it comes to the Euro-Mediterranean region, we need to look after the development cooperation aspects, how to make the development cooperation within our 42 member states in the Mediterranean and beyond viable and doable by doing the right thing, which is enhancing the governance system, enhancing the regulatory framework, as well as to enhance the regional cooperation among entities beyond the government, with the private sector, with civil society organization, as well as UN agency and organization. So I believe the Malta Forum, Mediterranean Water Forum, had laid the ground for us as an expert around the Mediterranean in order to focus our effort on those three angles. Congratulations for all people who participated on this. And we are committed to help support to synthesize this. Even I was telling Malika and Ida, as well as our great friend Alain Massoner, that we can also work on together in order to highlight the result on a very good way that they can be easy distributed with our partner and to enhance the collaboration beyond the Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Almotaz. Thank you for your engagement and the UPM and your support and your participation. Now I will pass the floor to Constantin Tsakas, qui représente le Centre méditerranéen pour l'intégration.
Who represent the Mediterranean Center for organization and
allons-y, Constantin, the floor is yours.
so without further ado, Mr. Constantin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alain. I'm going to switch to English. Can everyone see my PowerPoint?
You have 5 minutes, and Constantin, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Is my PowerPoint visible?
Yes, perfect. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. So good morning, everyone, and thank you to Alain and to Institut Méditerranéen de l'Eau for this opportunity, for this great webinar following a great forum in Malta. The CMI session was on regional approaches for improving water management. And we've noted through our research that the way water is managed can have profound economic, social, and political implication. And as noted during the keynote speech by the CMI director, Blanca Moreno-Dodson, there are interconnected challenges related to water management, which are the central issues during the 21st century in the context of climate variability in the Mediterranean. You have water, energy, and food security that are closely interlinked. Lack of water may also lead to movements of population, so migration. Climate change also leads to unpredictable water availability, water scarcity, and so on. So in a nutshell, we've noted that water challenges are interconnected. And if challenges are interconnected, so must be solutions. So this is why we seek to highlight what we call nexus solutions, interconnected solutions during the CMI session in Malta. And these solutions would need to respond to local needs, they would need to innovate water management, and they would need to contribute to enhanced cooperation and integration in management, governance, and knowledge sharing. So we had the pleasure of hearing the presentations of 4 solutions. Idrusa, which was a regenerative, nature-inspired water solution. We had WaterMed 4.0, which was a smart water technology applied to improve quality and
Constantin, il faut passer les diapositives.
Thank you. We also had another one, which was Optimu, a youth-led entrepreneurial initiative, a smart dashboard for water management. And finally, Eau Marseille Maroc, which presented us a hydraulic efficiency monitoring tool. So all of them were of great quality and gave us a glimpse as to how they could give an answer to interrelated water challenges. Then we also received what I would like to call the message from Malta. After a voting process, you told us yourselves what you think an ideal solution to respond to. So you stressed how water, climate change, adaptation nexuses, and water, energy, food nexuses should be prioritized. You also stressed how key challenges that need to be dealt with include building trust and enhancing donors' development coordination, which is something that highlights the importance of local ownership. And finally, they need to strengthen governance and water education. So we took this into account, this additional Malta message. And based on that, the solutions that seem to have an immediate and perhaps more holistic potential that could be presented at Dakar seem to be WaterMed and Hydrusa. WaterMed on the one side has both a macro dimension and a micro dimension and encompasses the whole agricultural sector, whereas Hydrusa focuses on nature-based solution and its exploitation is co-designed with local stakeholders. But of course, all of them were of great quality. And some concluding reflections that we had following our event is that First of all, as we truly need to cooperate to respond to water challenges, the CMI support the rich ideas that were proposed in the forum, including the Med Treaty for the Environment, Economy, and Biodiversity, as well as the Observatory of Non-Conventional Water Resources that was presented. So we are ready to contribute to those initiatives. A second point, we need to capitalize on the youth. We've noted that they carry a great potential and can be an example of successful regional cooperation. So a call to all project leaders: include the youth in your projects, as they can be knowledge producers, they can be innovators and agents of change. So on our side, we would also be happy to connect you with our youth network, Mediwatt. And at CMI, we will continue supporting the youth through this network, and we will soon hold the Youth Regional Forum, more precisely on the 24th and 25th of February, to capitalize on our youth network to strengthen a research study that we've been conducting. So thank you, and looking forward to Dakar.
Merci beaucoup, Constantin. En tout cas, merci pour votre participation, pour le travail que vous avez fait de synthèse.
Thank you very much, Constantin, for your work, for what you've been doing. And I'd like to enhance the presence of youth who were present in Malta and who are going to be also present in Dakar. We could be their mentor and guide them, but we will give them the opportunity to take decisions, good decisions. Thank you very much for that. And before giving the floor to Ali Chan, who has to leave us, we are starting the preparation of Dakar based on these conclusions. So we'll definitely suggest some preparation meetings, and we need to be very efficient during these meetings. I'll give the floor without further ado to Ellie Chan, and I'll give you the opportunity to talk about the non-conventional water.
My name is Elian Saf. I don't want to go into too many thank yous and we did this and we did that. It was all fantastic. There's no doubt about it. But I want to use your time to present the findings of the most important presentations and session of Malta, which focused on non-conventional water resources, because they are to a very large extent the future of water resources in the Mediterranean region. So briefly, we basically settled on three main issues. The costs of non-conventional water use are still high, but the economic benefits are so important that we cannot just say, oh, it's very expensive, we cannot invest in this. Energy is a very, very important part of non-renewable water resources or non-conventional water resources. We talk about reuse of treated wastewater, you talk about desalination, and we talk about the importance of, just as others have mentioned in these presentations, integrating solutions. So costs, they may be high, but the economic benefits are much higher. So it is worthwhile to invest in these nominal costs. The second solution is awareness. There is still a lot to be gained in terms of increasing awareness on the potential benefit of non-conventional water resources, as well as the possible negative environmental impacts of unregulated brine disposal or insufficient water quality monitoring. So there are two sides to that coin, but we present it in a positive way, that we have to increase this awareness. Finally, a third conclusion was regulation. Regulation is required for non-conventional water resources. Many administrative silos still exist, but a focus on integration on a nexus of water, energy, and food security, bearing in mind the environment, is crucial. So very practically, if you look at Dakar this year, from the Mediterranean region, we would like to basically come down to three issues to present. The first one is that non-conventional water resources as an input to economic development need to be priced accordingly. This means that a proper assessment has to be done to assess the willingness and ability to pay of users, the environmental cost of investing in non-conventional water resources, and the intent of governance structures to continue investing and subsidizing, in some cases, these water resources.
The second point that we want to take to Dakar is the need for communication and awareness campaigns on the potential and need of non-conventional water resources, highlighting the increasing scarcity of water, but also the positive note that this problem can be addressed. The problem can be solved. Climate change, as Al-Mu'taz said, is definitely a game changer, making life very difficult for us. But at our session for non-conventional water resources, we concluded that this problem can be addressed using, amongst others, non-conventional water resources. So the second point is communication and awareness to ensure that political and social obstacles are addressed. Finally, we also developed the idea, which was already developed in previous sessions, which you want to take forward, of an international observatory on non-conventional water resources and associated renewable energies. This can provide experience, practical case study technologies, and access to finance. So it's seen as a stepping stone to harmonizing standards, approaches, technologies, and costs across the basin. So as you can see, at our session on non-conventional water resources, three main issues became clear. Costs are high, but can be addressed and have economic benefits. Awareness needs to be addressed, and cooperation, integration, regulation. These, we need to bring it all together. So these are my 5 minutes. I hope this was useful. Thank you very much, Alain and everybody. And I'd like to give the floor back to Alain. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Elie. Merci pour.
Thank you very much, Ali Chan, for this beautiful synthesis. And I know that we'll definitely have some very important answers to present in Dakar with these beautiful experiences in this field, especially through the study we are conducted. I know that François Garbert is here with Nicolas Roche and others, other researchers, Mr. Jawad, whom I seen earlier on the screen. So the presentation and of the observatory for NCWR is very important. The creation of this observatory is very important. I would like to seize that and announce that associated renewable energies are important, and we'll have a special webinar on January 20th on water and renewable energies. We have some beautiful presentations. We have 6 presentations that are very, very interesting, and I would like you to note down that webinar, January 20, from 4 to 6. I know that you need to leave us early, so don't hesitate. Thank you very much again, and I give the floor to Mr. Ramiro Martinez, who was in the session in water management, and he's going to share with us a beautiful experience of Spain and other countries. Ramiro, the floor is yours. Hello, everyone. Hi, Alain. I hope that you can see my screen that I am sharing with you. The first thing that I'd like to mention is that this participatory session.
C'est ça, notre Keynote est à piano, et je profite de l'occasion encore une fois pour remercier l'organisation des Animal Tests pour ces conférences. D'accord, avec le programme, nous avons eu 4 panélistes principaux, dont vous savez déjà à l'écran. Du ministère espagnol, nous sommes parlé surtout de l'écouplage de différents types de ressources en eau, les ressources naturelles et les ressources non conventionnelles. Depuis le Liban, nous avons écouté des expériences de gestion intégrée au niveau pays, et surtout en soulignant la dimension de la formation et l'éducation. Depuis la Tunisie, nous avons emporté un message depuis l'autorité qui est chargée de la distribution de l'eau potable au pays. Donc, nous avons parlé de la nécessité de faire une espèce de complément de ressources non conventionnels parce que les ressources naturelles ne sont pas suffisantes.
Natural resources are not sufficient. So to finish, I'm Mr. Juan Valero from the Euro-Mediterranean Association for Water Operators. I have spoken on behalf of these associations. Normally, they are, in them, and we'd like to thank him for his collaboration and for the publication of this between the users and the decision makers. So it's also very interesting that the debate we had at the end of the session with all the contributions of all the Friends of Water, whether in person or remotely. So our friend Manuel Sapiano in his introduction reminded us what are the main dimensions of the water management. It's clear, it's a question of, it's a very cross-cutting issue that goes beyond the strict confines of the water world and requires coordination to face these are issues that on which this management space that is the social, economic, environmental considerations. So water cannot be as we heard earlier, cannot in Gérard's presentation, water cannot be managed in isolation. It's the nexus of nexus. On the other hand, so this is on the general, drawing that comes since the beginning, the training that must supply the decision makers and civil society that do the general drawing of this to promote planning, which is the basis of this integrated management as reminded by Manuel Gérard, to all the 2030 agenda. So water is a cross-cutting, issue with all the other SDGs. We have selected in our session what are the three main challenges in the water sector. It's not just in our Mediterranean region, because it's also shared with other regions in the world. It's water scarcity in the Mediterranean. It's the effects of climate change that are going to increase this water scarcity. And on the other hand, we're going to also become a more frequent extreme events and more intense. And on the hand, in the Mediterranean, we must pay special attention or importance to the agriculture sector, because it represents 80% of water demand. To conclude of our session, I would like to highlight here 7 main points. The first one is the need for prior planning, ahead of time, to develop, to reach a good governance system and based on data and sufficient data. The second one is the need for prior at the beginning, as I said earlier, it's an education and training system for all the people involved in the general governance management system. And the third thing, which is very important, is the need to identify the relevant or competent authorities. It's a cross-cutting issue that requires many ministries, many stakeholders, and administrations. We need to put in place a coordination mechanism between them within the whole territory to be able to reach integrated management as should be. And the fourth one is the territorial. So in integrated management, which will also represent the resources, whether natural or non-professional, and also the members of the various. The fifth point is the need, of course, the need for joint consideration of natural resources and conventional resources, natural, which are not an alternative but complementary. We highlighted also that the need and the requirement to put in place the user communities to collaborate with the administration and civil society and the population of the administration. And the seventh is as we need to make special efforts in the field of agriculture, which requires or uses about 80% of resources in the region. And I'm sure if we make efforts in this sector, it would be the most useful one in management. So thank you very much, Ramiro. In fact, what we see through this is that if we could summarize it globally, is the need to have a new vision on demand, of course, with the different users. So we should start with agriculture because, as you said so well, it's the first user. So to improve this in Mediterranean and especially in the south of Spain, but also in many other places in Malta, in Morocco and Tunisia, we are starting to put in place water saving solutions. So it's important to have this new vision on demand by integrating as much as possible the water users, the person who's going to use the water, whether they are farmers or industrialists or the average citizen of any town or village. So what matters that we see today, finally, and as I say, is the countries starting to have a 2050 vision. We have never seen that. Before we used to see a vision at 10, 15 years, but a 30-year horizon or vision is why. But there's so much pressure is because water has become the main, challenge of the development of a country. The countries who are most under, this. And that are also facing this and who continue to put pressure on water. So we must absolutely have this vision of water at 2050 and even beyond that. And some countries in the south of Mediterranean have given themselves the tools for this. Like, for example, Tunisia and Morocco, to base all development, all the strategies or policy, development policies generally for the country on water and energy. Which are the two important factors for food and for development in general and the economic development of these countries. Thank you very much. I will give the floor again to Martez for the conclusions on the session on funding, on water financing and evolution over time. Thank you, Martez. Please open your mic, Martez.
Thank you very much again. I'm sorry that I need to intervene twice. Can I share my screen a little bit? Because
sure, you can.
Okay, advanced. I don't know. There is.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen now?
Perfect. You have to put it in full. Yes.
Now
perfect.
it
Excellent.
is okay. Thank you very much. As I said that we need to go. The session
You
that
have
also
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Yeah. The session that been also moderated by the Union for the Mediterranean. It was about a new approach for water investment and financing, and how to link this new approach with the issue related to the climate financing. So the session, as you know, had been attended by many of our colleagues from the region, and it was inaugurated by a very great keynote speak by Jamal Saghir, as well as we have our great contribution from the French Development Agency, as well as from the European Investment Bank, and from the Agency for Cooperation of Kingdom of Spain. And also we brought together our partners from UNECE. Here we talk about the financing to the transboundary water resources management. And we have also another experience from a water utility from our colleague from the agency adaptation of the Remy-Toron water agency of the Rhone in the Mediterranean. And actually the formula bringing all those actors in the session was to show the element related to the the need in order to have a comprehensive approach toward the water financing in the Mediterranean region. I don't want to repeat myself again about the issues that call upon us in the Mediterranean region that need to cooperate, as well as to look at innovative way of financing. As said, we are facing a socio-economic situation, political situation, as well as a climate crisis in the Mediterranean. Health, the GDP is expected to go 7.3 in the MENA region, according to the World Bank and also the study from OECD. Climate change is giving us pressure, and water become scarce, as well as the resources to fund it becoming more scarce. So the Mediterranean, the concept of our session is to look after how we can keep ensuring that our population have access to affordable water. This is the most important thing, not only water, because we need to have it affordable, accelerating the achievement of universal access that also will require additional financial resources without any crisis, without any help, without any change. Some of our water utility, as we hear from the participant, already adding cost as they rush on many different mechanisms to enhance the delivery and to respond to the inability of the citizen to pay their bills. The financial sustainability of the water sector is additionally threatened by the decline of financial contribution from water user, public budget, as well as development partner. In several countries, some of the emergency measures to protect COVID has been also, yes.
Yeah, just reduce the velocity of your speech because it's quite complicated for the translator.
Okay, thank you very much for this note. As well as the issue related to the how to make it a comprehensive. So to make it clear that the participant in our session from different sector had give some recommendation how to support more inclusive investment policies and the planning process across the Mediterranean, how we can also address to develop a more balanced portfolio of investment solution in the Mediterranean, especially on the North African as well as Eastern Mediterranean country, by focusing on different aspects. The first one, information, investment on the data management among our member state and the all collaborator. Also, institutionally speaking, there were a call in order to enhance the issue related to the investment and to link it with the climate, that we need to invest on the institutional aspects. Here, I'm talking about the two levels, the governance, as well as the regulatory framework, and the capacity of the manager of these institutions. Here, we talk about institutional framework, talk about governance, ministries, water utility, as well as water service provider, in order to enhance their capacity to access these funding, because there are many issues now at the table. You need to have a very good water project, infrastructure, or supply, or non-revenue water. You need to link it to the climate change, to the gender issues, as well as you want to link it to the political processes that we are facing in the Mediterranean. Also, the second recommendation that came out from the session, that we need to adopt a more integrated approach for water investment and the planning and the programming within the other sectors. Here we talk about the Wi-Fi nexus, the water energy, because the issue of investment and to enhance the revenue of the water sector itself, it depends on the tariff as well as the collection. And as said by my other colleagues and everybody, that water in the Mediterranean is energy. So we cannot produce more water if we don't have affordable energy. So focusing on the nexus between the water and energy, as well as the link it to the climate measures and the climate adaptation here by focusing on the renewable energy sources, either for desalination or for the wastewater treatment as the non-conventional water resource, is very important, which will make it easy for us to attract more funding from private actor and from many other equity funding. The last point that I will end, that there were a call toward what we call it the multi and triangular cooperation between different actors. Here, when it comes to the Union for the Mediterranean, we are talking about all IFIs, European Union entities, as well as European entities, including the neighborhood cooperation with a different instrument, including the Green Deal and the Green Recovery, and to focus all effort into the how to support the self-revenue as well as the development aid to the southern country from the bilateral portfolio as well as from the regional cooperation element when it comes to the GCF, GEF, to give priority for financing water project, because more the investing in the water is investing on the climate change challenge and solving the effect and the impact of the climate change on our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Motaz. This will be one or maybe of the major group or session that we have to work together to precise the response of typical response from the Mediterranean that we have to bring to Dakar. And so that will be our work during the month of February together. Thank you very much, Almotaz. And now I go to Antti Bruma from the JWP Med, which was in charge of the last session, the session about cooperation. Antti, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Alan. Really great to see everybody. What a great way actually to start the year with the Mediterranean family and all of us together. So a very warm thanks. Very briefly, as said, I would like to share with you some of the key highlights from session 5 that was on international cooperation. Let me say that this was actually the space where we discussed the commonalities and the challenges we face across the region, so north-south. And this aligns very much with the overall aim of the Mediterranean preparatory process, which is about identifying best practices and technical solutions developed in our region to address the prevailing water challenges and climate change impacts, and do what with them? Share them widely within and beyond our region. And the overall objective was to showcase our region as a hub of innovative water management solutions and as an example of how collective work and cooperation can promote regional stability and the sustainability of both political economies and livelihoods. Let me give you a very small flavor of the session. It was very rich. It was truly a hybrid session, as Manuel mentioned. We had speakers joining online and speakers being present in Malta. So we had different contributions aside from the keynote speech, coming from the National Office for Electricity and Drinking Water of Morocco, from PrimaMed, from Program Solidarité Eau, Euromed Cities Network, the Geneva Water Hub, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So as you can see, a very nice mixture of national entities, regional organizations, international organizations, and research bodies as well. Very briefly, a few of the key points we raised during the session. A common thing that we agreed upon was that when talking about international or regional cooperation, we need to go beyond transboundary, and we need to go beyond the concept of joint water resources management, because such type of cooperation is so much broader. Also, we agreed that we really need to capitalize on our Mediterranean culture, which is truly a mosaic of coexistence, necessitating cooperation, and over there, water could be used as a common denominator and a common theme of dialogue. Also, we saw and we realized by sharing our experiences that our region is a laboratory of international and regional initiatives. And there is such a wealth of nexuses that we discuss on such regular basis. So we need to also capitalize on that. Furthermore, and despite the very challenging conditions that we face in our region, we do remain an exemplary case of active and delivering north-south, south-north, south-south interface, both for learning and sharing. Also, we said that under these changing and quite challenging environmental conditions, international cooperation is more imperative, even more than ever, and could result in optimizing the use of funds and funding mechanisms. And finally, that the new Mediterranean horticulture based on education and awareness could provide the appropriate, this enabling background for international and regional cooperation on water. Through the discussion, we decided that the messages we take to Dakar from theme 5 on international cooperation would be divided largely in two sections, if you like. So we identified 7 items that as a Mediterranean we're very proud of, and we would be good to showcase and highlight beyond our region. And then another 7 points, we're being quite modest. We recognize that we need assistance with, or more assistance with, and therefore it would be good to learn from other regions. So on the first part, where we're talking about what we can share with the region, is first of all, the wealth of governance frameworks and schemes that we have that have proven, and this is very important, they have proven record of effectiveness. So many important multi-stakeholder platforms, networks, federations, a wealth of work and action, and resilient regional formal governance frameworks. Secondly, the effective decentralized cooperation models, whether among cities, whether among local regional authorities, water operators, cooperatives, utilities. So there is a wealth over there that we can share as a model. Thirdly, innovative research and applied technical solutions, including on non-conventional resources. We heard about it earlier, and also responses to extreme events that are quite, too frequent in our region, unfortunately. Also, the conception and practical implementation of out of the water box and cross-sectoral approaches, including the Wi-Fi nexus, the water, energy, food ecosystems, the source to sea, blue-green, and so on. Also, water education and awareness. In our region, we do have an approved Mediterranean strategy and action plan on education for sustainable development. And finally, we have very active north-south, south-north, south-south interface with very promising potential for a triangular interface, so north, south, south. Going into the modest part about what are the things that we can learn from outside our region, would be definitely further emphasis on adaptive and efficient governance schemes, especially when it comes to regulation within national contexts. Secondly, about entrepreneurship and employment opportunities, especially for youth, in order to increase productivity and avoid brain drain, which unfortunately is widespread across our region. Also, further knowledge and capacity building on access and use of funding opportunities and flexible financing mechanisms. Inserting and safeguarding principles such as transparency, integrity, accountability in the water sector, also through innovative financial structures that we heard also from the previous session. Furthermore, improve expertise, capacity, means, and use untapped potential, also through female empowerment and youth inclusion, in order to enhance effective and efficient management. Also, we really need in our region to move beyond gender mainstreaming and towards gender equality. Finally, we need to further strengthen efforts, including through education and awareness, towards a new water culture. So by this duality, let's say, of what we can share with the world and what we can learn from the world, we would like to take these messages towards Dakar. And many thanks for your attention. Hope I didn't take too long, Alain.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Auntie. Thank you very much for your excellent work of synthesis of your session. It was not very easy, I understand. And well, now maybe on peut donc passer directement pour.
Now we'll go without further ado, and in order to not take time to Mrs. Minister, who is here to present a synthesis of the Mediterranean Water Forum. She was with us and heard what's have been going on. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharafat Afulay. And I give you the floor without further ado in order to conclude this first session with us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alain, and good evening, everyone. I know that it's not possible to take the floor after the beautiful speeches that we've heard. Thank you for your confidence and trusting me with the synthesis of this forum. I'm very glad to say that the fourth forum was in Malta, and I'll be talking about the form and the content of the December forum. So the forum took place even though we knew many sanitary restrictions. We weren't able to be greeting each other physically. Our forum allowed us to retrace the routes we will make to Dakar. And if there is a relevant conclusion to be drawn from this experience of the years 2020 and 2021, I'll mention quite simply the importance and the need of strengthening the international cooperation and partnership, one of the essential foundations of our forum and the Mediterranean Water Institute, IME. The pandemic has generated a structural crisis and fundamental challenges to our political, economic, social structures, but also in terms of the sovereignty of states, sovereignty of vital sectors such as water, health, energy, and food. Never before has the world talked about water as much as during this crisis to address the issue of hygiene as a central input to the pandemic response plans, while many whole swaths around the world are sorely lacking in this step. Ladies and gentlemen, the demographic surge combined with climate change is seriously accentuating the scarcity of water, which is already reaching worrying peaks in our Mediterranean region. Experts are categorical and unanimous. The Mediterranean basin is a hotspot for climate change, whose impacts are constantly growing. Other phenomena and ingredients related to climate change are accelerating in this basin. Terrible rise in temperatures, water stress, devastating fires and floods, rise in sea and ocean levels. This leads to considerable human and economic losses for large social categories. Why should water be at the forefront and a top priority in our public policies? Like the two sides of Janus, water could be at the origin of conflict in hydro-conflict areas, but also a vector of peace and cooperation. We intend to keep it as an instrument for strengthening our unity. In our current context, the figures are frightening. 180 million of the Mediterranean population live in water stress with a renewable water supply of less than 1,000 cubic meter per year, and future projections are very alarming. More than 80 million of the population will have less than 500 cubic meter per year in 2025, especially in the countries of the South Shore and the East side. This situation impacts and will impact much more of the poorest and most vulnerable layers. Moreover, partnerships and regional integration are integration, are able to provide effective and judicious responses which are long-term and not as one-off solutions that do not attack the evil at its roots. The Mediterranean basin, the cradle of many civilizations, is and still was the symbol of creativity and innovation thanks to its collective intelligence. Multitudes of initiatives, platforms, networks of cooperation are already there, and we can only welcome them. As Loic Fauchon said during his opening remarks, the solutions are there, they must be translated into answers. What will be the challenge of our great mass next March in Dakar? To overcome a commitment of decision makers to translate our solutions into answers. During COP21 and COP22, if a peaceful battle was waged to convince decision makers and the international community to recognize the water sector as the first victim of climate change, it will be necessary to note that since Paris and Marrakesh, a lot of water has flowed under the bridges. And today, water is a recognized priority. On the other hand, in the face of the timid conclusions of COP26 today, the forum reiterated its unanimous commitment to urgent action for water and climate by harmonizing in an ideal symbiosis the two agencies in order to replace the current fragmented and crisis-oriented approach. Through an integrated and time-bound approach, agendas and achievable results, progress in mobilization financing for the water sector as the main lever for adaptation remains timid, and access to procedures are difficult, especially for the countries of the South and the East. It was also pointed out by Mr. Matez that the sources of financing combined with traditional sources and specialized climate funds remains essential and even indispensable for climate security and water and food security in the Mediterranean regions. The finance strategy developed by the UFM will have to be broken down into action plans, ensuring that the economic value of water is reconciled with the maintenance of the public service, especially for the vulnerable categories. While population development in the northern countries is almost stagnant, strong population growth is in the southeast is being recorded, leading to pressure and overexploitation of water resources. As a result, the geographical and temporal imbalance between demand and availability of fresh water is already noted. Moreover, openness to non-conventional resources such as desalination and reuse is no longer a choice but a necessity, and this to safeguard the water, food, and even economic sovereignty of our states. In this sense, the Forum has provided promising solutions to these emergent problems in terms of innovation and competitiveness, especially in the field of desalination, clean purification technologies with zero greenhouse gas emissions through the promotion of coupling with renewable energies, confirming that we can still meet our water needs with less risks to the environment and at a low cost. The establishment of a regional observatory dedicated to this purpose as a platform for data collection, exchange, and transfer of technological advances is a good illustration for the promotion of this project. We thank the World Water Council for the trust placed in the Mediterranean Water Institute, IME, to carry out the feasibility studies. Dear colleagues, dear friends, our meeting is scheduled a little more than 3 months before the great global gathering around water in March 2022 in Senegal, an African country close to the Mediterranean region. This choice is not fortuitous, nor are the specific themes chosen of our World Forum, which are closely linked to the objective of the World Water Forum, which is constantly repeated, and the trajectory of the COP Forum. Today, we must unleash our collective intelligence and support the effective solutions that have been presented to us to provide sustainable responses in terms of water, energy, and food security in perfect harmony with the SDGs. The diagnosis is anonymous and has been carried out on multiple occasions. Today, the imperative is to capitalize on the expertise acquired in water sector governments through integrated management as an approach. Voices have been raised on several occasions for the mobilization of bold and courageous measures to be taken to improve the mode of governance by IWRM, in particular the crucial role of planning, governance of water intended for the agriculture sector, first consumer of water, the structuring of community of users, the inclusion of non-conventional resources in the allocation of resources. I was personally delighted to discover some ingenious solutions carried by young and less young people. For example, Idrusa, as an innovative nature-based operating solution, WaterMed 4.0, a smart tool to improve the quality and yield of irrigation water in dry land, Marseille, Morocco waters, and others. So let's dare to turn challenges into solutions and solutions into answers. Dear colleagues, we are not going to reinvent the wheel, and the miraculous remedy is to identify the best practices that have succeeded in our region and around the world to make them models of water management and its safety. Another step towards this goal can be taken if official policies in the Mediterranean region can make water and its democratization as a public service a priority in each of our countries. It is in the light of this involvement that we will surely be able to walk toward water progress. Let's us remain optimistic and turn these trials into everyday reality. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you very much, Mrs. Minister. Thank you for this beautiful synthesis. And if you allow me, I'll add you to the working group who'll be dedicated to the answers and responses to Dakar, the ones you mentioned in your speech. So I'd like to address all the participants and tell them, if you want to share your concrete responses and have them part of these sessions, do not hesitate to share with us concrete examples, concrete responses, beautiful experiences that you can share with us and were presented prior in Malta. And I'm thinking here about the Apsis Linguae and the solution presented by OCP in Morocco, which is a main industrial sector, one of the pillars of the industry in Morocco, a solution that could be duplicated in different countries, a solution where big industries could be part of the solutions and find solutions for reuse water, for to use it for their own needs. So we have in front of us different solutions. Mr. Rifat from Egyptian water suppliers is stating that they want or need to be present in the Dakar forum. I would like to say that I was present in Egypt, in Cairo, and I wanted to say that you have beautiful experiences and some associations, especially the one for the energy, renewable energy production and non-conventional water resources is an important one in your country, and this is a very important couple that should be present, and I'd like you to be part in a Dakar forum. Thank you again for that. And now I'd like to go back to the question. Gérard has already started answering a couple of questions in the chat box. And maybe, Gérard, you could summarize the elements of answers if you can, so that everyone could benefit from your answers. So I'll give you the floor, Gérard, in order to, let's say, summarize your elements of answers to the questions that were raised in the chat box. Thank you very much. I tried to answer all the questions which were addressed to me, and I hope that my answers are clear enough. Many answers could be collected as the following. We are addressing the impact of water on the SDGs, and starting from the moment where the users think that the impacts are on the SDGs, this particular tool is important and depends, of course, on the expertise of the users and the quality of the information that they have. In the Dakar framework, we have studied some project based on the information that we have received, and sometimes these information were just assumptions and hypotheses. So the tool itself functions in a mechanical way. Same information would lead to the same result, and it is relatively easy, even though, or simple, even though it doesn't simplify the situation in itself, but it gives the evaluator to give a subjective or rather subjective opinion based on what they already know, the information, the expertise of the sector of water and sanitation. However, it depends really on the inputs. So the same, for example, project would be evaluated in a different way by two different evaluators. And these two people will detect the same impact on the same targets with, let's say, a slightly different score, which is irrelevant because score is not very precise, and you just, for example, change the level of population by 10%, you'll have a different score, and this is related to the parameter. Thank you very much, Gérard. There was another question from Auntie. I know that you're here with us. Maybe you can ask the question again, or I'll just read it. Maybe I can give you the floor again, Auntie. Let me read the question though.
It will be useful knowing how the water for SGD, excuse me, method links with the regular reporting that countries submit formally, especially on the SGD 6, and the effort done at country and regional levels from achieving Agenda 2030.
C'est une très bonne question. J'ai donné une réponse, mais forcément.
It's a very good question. I gave a answer in the chat box, and the main answer is related to the effort. So for the countries who are doing analysis of their situations in relationship with the SDGs, will mobilize tens of people, consulting ministers, consulting different peoples, and will generate ad hoc reports, which are a result of reflections conducted within a precise framework in order to send the report to the United Nations. So the app, Water for All SDGs, do not serve this purpose. It rather serve the purpose of helping an actor on the field, maybe the municipality, maybe the region, maybe an enterprise, or a collective of municipalities, let's say. The app, therefore, would help them have a clear idea on the impacts of what they're doing on the SDGs. So it's not, the tool is useful rather on a local level. Maybe one day when people will consider that this tool is relevant among the actors, we could use it at this level, but we still have time to think about that. The app Water for All SDGs based on experience, is something that is easily used by an evaluator, but a report of a country to be submitted to the UN takes a couple of hours, and an analysis done thoroughly by different people. So I'd like to say that the tool is very well adapted to evaluate a project, not a policy. Why? Because I think that the different effects, as you said, Gérard, the population represents the country, and the impact on a population should be clear and the best for the country. When we talk about a project, we're talking about a particular region, zone, category, etc. And the impact would be very precise on that particular area. Thank you very much, Gérard, for answering this question. If you have any other question, do not hesitate to test the tool, to use the tool. I think that you can go on the website or send an email to contact water4allsdgs.org and ask all the questions related to the app and ask all your questions and help perform the use of the tool, and your result may be used in some of the sessions of Dakar. Once again, thank you very much, Gérard, and I go back to the conclusions of the elements of answers of our Forum of Malta, and we have been very happy and glad to organize the forum, even though the challenges, of course, our friends from Malta have done so much in order to organize this forum. We were very saddened by the fact that the Moroccan delegation, the Jordanian, the Egyptian delegations were not able to be in the forum, but thankfully we have this hybrid possibility of having the forum. We had webinars, sessions diffused online, and we were able to do a beautiful synthesis. We haven't talked about the side event. There was a very beautiful side event on Omer adapted to water sector, training youth, the pillars of the Mediterranean region, giving them the reality, the concrete aspect, in order for them to be more responsible once back to their countries. That was another point, very important, that we could discuss in the future, in future webinars. And another side event on Smilo. Smilo is the association of small islands, and they provided us with beautiful and smart solutions. I think that they will be with us in Dakar, and we will help them as a partner. And finally, the presentations on ODDs.
So we as IME had a special event on the observatory of the unconventional water resources and associated of the renewable energy. So was Francois, who's your president, and moderated that session, and he was very good. And I'm looking with my next webinar on the 20th of January, which will be two interesting presentations by SMEs from the IME who have presented the solutions for associated renewable energies for water, for desalination and water treatment. So I would like to invite you all to really participate in this. And also, we will be lucky enough to have the confirmed presence of Mazen, who is the main renewable energy operated in Morocco, and also Irizen, which is also the Research Institute on Renewable Energies, who works in cooperation with ONE and all operators in the water sector to develop new resources for unconventional water. We will also have a presentation of a practical case presented by the Cyprus Institute on the desalination solution associated with a solar oven on the island of Cyprus. And also we will have our colleague Jawad, who is today the director of the RECRE, and who is a great center for reflection and research for renewable energies in the Maghreb and the Mashrek, and who also is a specialist, expert in our research, and who will give us a keynote speech on this association between renewable energies with unconventional waters. Thank you very much, everyone. Happy New Year once again, and good health, especially to everyone. And hope to see you again very soon, 20th of January, 1600 hours. Goodbye, everybody. See you next time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to all.